Welcome to the Femolution Podcast. This isn't another finance show about hustling harder, chasing revenue, or glorifying burnout. And it's definitely not another conversation about chasing profit at any cost. This is where we dismantle the systems that told you you had to make more money before you were allowed to protect it. Because at Fem Solutions, we believe in something radically different. Protection comes first, and profit naturally follows. Because real financial power isn't about being rich, it's about being resourced. And on this podcast, we're redefining what financial freedom actually means. And it is not a destination reserved for the wealthy, but it's a daily practice available at any income level when you understand how to manage, protect, and optimize what you already have. We talk about building financial ecosystems, not just profitable businesses, about securing your infrastructure before you scale your income, and creating systems that protect your cash flow, your peace, and your future. You'll hear conversations rooted in FEM's core philosophy: protection first, not profit first, and strong money that supports a soft life, and freedom that's measured by resources, not status. And last but definitely not least, impact that extends beyond your bank account. Because FEM is not here to follow the industry standards. We're here to set a new one. Because we don't just serve clients, we empower change makers. And this podcast is part of that movement. It's part of our empowering process. So if you know your brilliance deserves better support, if you're done building income without infrastructure, and you're ready to stop leaking money, energy, and peace, then you're in the right place. This is the Femolution Podcast, where we teach you how to do money the Fem way. Most people think that money stress is about a lack of discipline or income or not trying hard enough. But in reality, money stress is about decision making under pressure. When money hits your account without a plan, every decision regarding it becomes emotional. You're reacting instead of directing. You're guessing instead of intentionally choosing. That's the problem that FEM exists to solve. Not the only one, just one of them, okay? Just to be clear. Now, most financial advice you'll see online, or even some financial professionals, they're going to tell you what to do after the money's already gone, right? They're looking at historical things. Or they're just simply going to tell you where your money went, right? When you have those little finance apps, they're telling you where your money went. They're not telling you where to put it. All right. But at FEM, it's all about deciding where your money goes before it ever even arrives. All right. Your money needs a filter. So protection first does not mean being afraid of money. Okay. It means preventing chaos instead of fixing it later. It requires a system to remove the guesswork and a framework that gives every single dollar that you receive a job before it ever even lands in your bank account. Because when your money already has a job, you stop wondering what you're supposed to do with it and you start choosing where it goes. And in reality, you already know where it goes because you have a system. All right. And this is what's going to reduce overspending, emotional spending, panic decisions, and money guilt. It doesn't take willpower. It's not about restricting you. It's about a system and a structure for your money. Okay. And the 4S FEMFlow Framework is the core system. It is FEM's core system that we use, both ourselves and with our clients. It's not a budget. It's not meant to be restrictive. Okay. It's simply a decision filter. That's how I want you to think about this. Your money needs a system. So your decisions have to be filtered through that system. Okay. So every dollar that comes into your life or business should flow through 4 key categories in this order. You ready? All right. Number 1, survival. This is your baseline, okay? It's going to cover your essentials, things like your rent or mortgage, your utilities, groceries, gas, clothing, food, basically your daily needs, right? Your day-to-day needs are survival, all right? It is not optional because when your essentials aren't covered, everything feels urgent. And financial panic and money stress thrive here. Safety creates freedom. I want you to remember that, okay? Because when your survival is secured, your panic and money stress naturally dissolve. Okay? They lessen. They're not as impactful in your daily life, okay? This is actually like when you have that panic and that stress, that's why you overspend in other areas. Because your survival feels threatened and you're trying to overcompensate. Or you get some extra money in and you've been really disciplined in making sure your basic needs were met all year. And then now that you have this extra money, you don't really know what to do with it. So you just spend it unnecessarily. And then later you're like, dang, I should have did this or I should have did that, right? It's all the what ifs, that shoulda, coulda, woulda, but didn't stage. And we're trying to prevent that, okay? So covering survival first will calm your nervous system. And when your nervous system is calm and you can make calm decisions, you make better decisions. You make more informed decisions because you're not coming from a place of panic or stress. So that's number 1, survival. All right. Number 2, stability. This is your income engine. That's what I want you to think of this as, okay? It covers the things that keep your revenue flowing. Tools, your team, marketing, coaching, systems, but it's also that 3 to 6 months of operating expenses or personal expenses set aside. So that way, when you have those low cash flow months, you have this buffer to kind of carry you through. And that's how you build financial resilience. All right. So stability is all about consistency, not hustle. All right. Because when your cash flow is volatile, when you have those up and downs, okay, that can create stress at even the highest income levels. But when you stabilize your cash flow because you have that buffer and you make sure that things are covered, no matter how much money you get in a particular month, it's going to reduce your chaos. It's going to allow your business to be sustainable long term and not just grow. All right. And this is where many founders and CEOs actually underinvest. They'll focus on cutting stability costs in an effort to save money and put more towards survival. And most of the time that backfires because stability is not a luxury, it's protection. And remember, at FEM, we're all about protection first. So survival has to be non-negotiable. That's number 1, right? But stability is immediately after that. It's a close second. And from there, we move into number 3. And that's self-care. And self-care is all about your peace, okay? It can cover things like therapy, rest, support systems, hiring help at home, and intentional recovery periods. Because you are the most valuable asset in your business. And when you burn out, that will break your system and it can cause your business to suffer unnecessarily. Because exhausted CEOs, they make reactive decisions. So I want you to stop thinking of self-care as something that's indulgent, okay? Think of it as asset protection, and you protect your assets at all costs. That's just the normal way that people think, right? I gotta protect my assets, right? I don't want to become a liability to my business. I want to be its main asset because I'm the one that can bring the money into my business like no one else, right? I can sell better than anyone else in my business because it's my business, it's my baby. This is how I survive. But I got to take care of me, right? So if you ignore this category, it's always going to show up in your spending patterns later. Always. Because your spending is going to become chaotic. I'm be honest, right? But when you invest in self-care, right? You're investing in your peace. And peace supports clarity. And clarity protects your cash flow. Now, before we move on to the final one, I'm going to answer a common question because I already know. Even without you not knowing the full order yet, you're wondering, okay, there's 4 categories. Why is self-care here? I didn't hear anything about savings. I didn't hear anything that made me understand why self-care is here. And that's what I'm going to address now. Okay. Because naturally, when you hear self-care being third, you're going to be like, wait, why is that before savings? But savings exists in a different context in this framework. Okay. Your reaction makes complete sense. I'm not going to sit up here and pretend like it don't. Okay. It makes complete sense. I got it. I get it. Okay. Most systems will put savings immediately after survival. But if you noticed, when we talked about stability, we talked about the key thing that most people talk about when it comes to savings. 3 to 6 months of operating expenses when it comes to a business, right? And 3 to 6 months of personal expenses when it comes to your personal life. That's what most people think of savings as in the 4S FEMFlow framework. That's stability, part of it, right? So let me give you the reality of why self-care is third, okay? Because burnout reduces your earning capacity, plain and simple. And when your earning capacity drops, your money gets forced back up to survival, right? Because now you're not making enough. And when your survival pressure increases, so the majority of your money is starting to go back to survival again, your savings are going to disappear anyway. And that's not what we want to happen, okay? So if you're not taking care of yourself, think of it this way. You become the bottleneck in your business, in your own income, in your earning capacity. You're limiting yourself when you don't take care of yourself, okay? And no, self-care does not mean reckless spending, right? It doesn't mean ignoring your responsibilities by any means, right? Because survival is your responsibility, stability is your responsibility. Those come before self-care. And I want you to think of self-care like this. It can be small and intentional, but it must be consistent. Even if that means you pick one day out of the month where you're not worrying about work, you have someone handle it, or you pick one area of your life or one area of your business to outsource. That's considered self-care because you're taking things off your plate, right? When you take things off your plate, everything becomes easier because what's left is things that you can truly focus on. We want you focused on where you're doing your best in your business, not on doing everything. Okay. So here is the real hierarchy that I want you to think about when it comes to the 4S FEMFlow framework. Number 1, it's going to be survival. Okay. This is non-negotiable. This is number 1. All these things have to be covered every single month, no matter what. Number 2 is stability. That's going to be your month over month protection. All right. Then it's self-care. That's going to be your capacity protection. And last, but definitely not least, is savings. That's all about expansion and your future vision and dealing with future you. Okay. Making things easier for future you. Now, savings isn't last because it's unimportant. Okay. It comes last because it's built on everything that came before it. And I'm going to do a full episode on this because it's one of the most misunderstood parts of the framework. Okay, self-care, saving, survival, stability. Like I'm changing the narrative. So I'm going to do a deep dive on each category so you can understand it better. But for now, I'm just giving you the overview. I'm just giving you an idea of what a money system can look like, or rather should look like, right? When we're going against the status quo, when we're not doing the same thing that everyone else is doing. All right. So now we'll talk about savings, right? Because we didn't really get into that yet. And savings is all about your future. All right. It's gonna cover things like retirement, buying land or a home if that's one of your goals, investing, right? It's things for future, vacations, even. All right. You can think about it that way, right? So savings is going to help reduce those fear-based decisions. All right. It's it's going to create options for you in the future. If you think of savings as your 3 to 6 months operating expenses, here's what happens. Your savings gets depleted to cover survival in those low cash flow months. And then you never really have savings after that. You basically start from the ground up. So you never get past the first two, right? If we had savings second, it would be survival, saving, and savings. Sorry. And you'd be ping ponging like back and forth between those, and you'd never really make any progress. That's why we reordered it. This was very intentional. And again, you'll understand it deeper in future episodes once we go into a deep dive of each category. But for now, all right, I want you to think like savings is not about hoarding. It's just about creating options. All right. And it's about having resources. It's about having a resourced future, technically, if you want to be 100%, right? And a resourced future, right? Knowing you have options, that's going to create confidence. And when you have confidence, that changes how you show up today. I already know my future's taken care of, right? So I'm going to show up differently today than I did if I had no idea what my future held or if I had anything going towards my future. All right. So we don't want you to be cornered financially. All right. So that's why we have this in a very specific order. And I'm going to talk to you about just briefly how it all works together inside of this 4S FEMFlow framework. Okay. Your money is going to flow through those 4 S's: survival, stability, self-care, savings. All right. And as a result, your decisions become automatic, not emotional. Money transfers, transferring your money to one of those 4 S's, replace money stress. And a system replaces the shame that you feel around your money management. All right. And the goal of this is not perfection, it's protection. So the 4S FEMFlow framework is the foundation. To keep it simple, we can just call it the 4S system, right? If that feels better for you. So the 4S system works like this. Your basic needs get met. Your stability gets met. So survival, basic needs. Stability, think of it as savings, 3 to 6 months, right? We're reframing savings. So think of it as the buffer month to month. Okay. Your tools, your team, your systems, things like that. And your operational savings and personal savings are in stability. Those buffers for those low cash flow months. Then self-care. You got to take care of you or you're going to become a bottleneck to your business. And we can't have that, right? You don't want to sell yourself short before you ever even really take off. So make sure you're taking care of you. And then savings is all about your future, right? It's all about expanding your business, taking a vacation, funding your retirement, funding future you. And when future you is funded, present you shows up differently. Present you is more confident. Present you knows exactly what to do. Present you gets things done rather than procrastinates and gets caught in the chaos and the stress. You can just breathe. because your money's strong. And when your money's strong, you get a soft life because you get to breathe. You get peace. Your decisions are automatic. They're no longer emotional. You're not stressing over where money's going after you already get it. You know where it's going before you ever get it. All right. Now, like I said, future episodes, we're going to break down each category further. I'm going to do a deep dive. So the first one we're going to cover, obviously, is going to be survival, even though this is a no-brainer. Because ultimately, the goal of the 4S FEMFlow framework, or the 4S system, right, is for you to decide what expenses you have every single month, what goals you have, and where those expenses and goals fall into the system. Okay. Because survival may not look the same for everyone. Stability might not look the same for everyone. You might want a month or two of savings versus 3 to 6. Or maybe you want 9 to 12 months of operational expenses covered and personal expenses covered. So then you can breathe even easier. It's just we'll get there, right? But it's gonna look different for everyone. And we respect that and we encourage it. We want you to make it your own. So for now, okay, you don't need to fix everything. All right. This podcast is about clarity, not pressure. All right. So you don't need to fix everything this week. I just want you to start intentionally noticing the decisions you're making regarding money and get to the why of why you're making those decisions. Why did I choose to spend my money here? What was I thinking? What was my thought process, right? Start filtering yourself. Like right now we're dealing with, because this is new, right? So you're going to be dealing with things that you used to do, but we're going to be changing that moving forward. So if you want to make a change, a lasting change, right? You have to first understand why you made the decision in the first place, because that's the only way you're going to be able to change it. If you don't know why you made a decision, you just feel like it was a poor decision, you're not going to be motivated to change it. I mean, you might change it short term, but you're not going to want to change it long term. It's going to require too much work, right? If you don't understand why you made that decision in the first place, you can't justify it. Can you? But I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm going to bring you back to what we're talking about, which is the 4S system. I'm simplifying it, okay? So with the 4S system, you got survival, stability, self-care, savings. That is how you're going to start making your money decisions. All the money that comes in is going to flow through one of those 4S's. Does that sound something you can do? Hopefully it does. Okay. But for now, like I said, I just want you over the next week, just notice the decisions you're making regarding money and figure out why you're making those decisions. Okay. And then we're going to work on changing that narrative, both internally and externally, right? Because internal change happens before it shows up externally. Remember that. All right. So this is the Femolution, where we do money the Fem way. And this was our first episode. And it was all about the 4S FEMFlow Framework, or for short, the 4S money system, or the 4S system. Okay. And next week, we're going to start our deep dives. So until then, enjoy the rest of your week. And I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, feel free to drop your comments, your thoughts below, right? And I will get to them as I'm able to get to them. I do my best to respond to everyone. So every Tuesday, you'll have a new episode here on Spotify and YouTube. It's just going to be like an hour difference. All right. Spotify first, then YouTube. So make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications, and I will see you next week.